All right, fellow Canon EOS R5 users, today is an exciting day because Canon just announced firmware update 1.3.0 for the Canon EOS R5, and I'm super stoked about it. They added some cool new features for videographers, fixed some bugs for photographers, and that's pretty cool. I appreciate that. Hopefully, doesn't say anything about overheating and fixing the overheating recovery time and all that stuff, but I hope that that's in there too. They added a little something like that last time, but they didn't mention it, so hopefully there's a little more improvement in that. And by the way, we are filming this video right now in glorious 4K HQ, so if you're watching on a 4K monitor, this is what an R5 looks like in 4K. So without further ado, let's talk about what's in the if only I could speak properly, right? Okay, so let's talk about what's in the new I can't talk today. I can't. All right, so Canon added 11 new things to the camera with this firmware update. There's 11 updates to make the R5 even better than it already is. But before we talk about what those 11 things are, first, let's talk about updating the camera. All right, so here's the deal. Some of us aren't really tech savvy, and the idea of downloading firmware and installing it onto the new camera on EOS R5, which we love, which we bought, which is a fantastic camera, sometimes that whole process might seem a little bit daunting. So for those of you who are in that sphere, who don't really like to do those kinds of things, I made a video for you. Right here, there's a quick tutorial on how to download and install the firmware on the EOS R5. So if you just picked up the camera, you're not tech savvy and you want to know how to do that, that video is for you. And now, let's see what's in this new firmware. All right, so if you go to the Canon website and you want to read about the things in the new firmware update, they give you a little scroll box that you have to scroll through, and on a 4K monitor, it's tiny and it's hard to read. So if you're one of those people who has trouble reading tiny text on a 4K monitor, I'm going to copy and paste the updates that are going to be in the firmware. I'm going to paste it down in the video description down below. So if you want to read the description, everything is going to be there. But I will say one thing, that there is more text here. Canon has updated other things like EOS Utility and Camera Raw plugin for Final Cut Pro X and Avid Media and all that other stuff. So if you want to read all that kind of stuff, you want to check out the Canon website for that. And also this page here with the EOS R5 download for the firmware download, I'm going to link that in the description as well, so you can go directly here and download the update yourself and read whatever you want to read. So now let's talk about what's in this firmware. All right, so let's talk about what you're actually going to get in this update. Number one, videographers, you may rejoice. You are going to get Log3. That's right, we're getting Log3 in the EOS R5, and that's pretty awesome. I'm stoked about that. And the other thing is, and this is going to be exciting for a lot of people, because I know a lot of people were complaining about the bit rate and the file sizes that were coming out of the R5 because they were so big and so heavy. A lot of computers had trouble dealing with them. You had to create proxies and you had to edit through proxies and export, and it just slowed down the whole process. So now you are getting RAW Lite in the EOS R5, and that's pretty exciting. So for everyone who had computers that were chugging along with the R5 footage, now we're gonna get RAW Lite in 4K and 8K. So that's pretty cool. We can shoot a compressed 4K or a smaller bitrate 4K and a smaller bitrate 8K. So for us who make YouTube videos, we can get high quality YouTube videos at a bitrate that is going to be more computer friendly and easier to edit. So that's a huge win. Thank you, Canon, for that. That's awesome. I'm really looking forward to using those features. All right, number three, and also on the video side, for those of you who are still shooting 1080p, and I get frustrated sometimes when I watch review videos on YouTube and people are like, check out how sharp this lens is. Look at this footage. It's so sharp. It's so amazing. Look at this. It's so clear, and it's 1080p, and I'm watching on a 4K monitor, and I'm like, it looks like mush to me. But for those of you who still insist upon shooting in 1080p, you're going to get 120 frames a second and 100 frames a second slow-mo in 1080p. Now, it doesn't say anything about dual pixel autofocus and being able to autofocus in those modes, but I assume since you can use dual pixel autofocus in 4K 120, you should be able to use it in 1080p 120 as well. So that's pretty exciting news for you 1080p shooters. All right, number four, and this one was tough to memorize, so I'm gonna have to read it off my book. Adds electronic full-time manual focus to the autofocus tab in the menu. When lens is attached, manual focus adjustment is always possible with both one-shot AF and servo AF. So that's pretty cool for you photographers who want to do little adjustments after you found focus. That's definitely a handy feature. And number 5, there's going to be an option in the menu to turn off the monitor, so you can have the monitor off while shooting. So I guess that's handy if you're shooting in a dark place and you don't want the monitor glowing and being a distraction to other people, or if you're hooked up to another kind of device like another monitor and you don't want the camera monitor on, you can turn that off, maybe save some battery life. So that's pretty cool. Now you have the option to turn off all the monitors and keep the camera like in ninja mode. It'll be completely dark and you can go out there and shoot with no monitor on. So that's kind of cool. All right, so 6 and 7 have to do with FTP transfer. So 6 is going to be, there's going to be now a number or an estimated amount of time for the files to transfer. So you'll actually have an idea of how long it's going to take to transfer whatever it is you're transferring to the server. So you know, if you have 10 minutes, you can grab a coffee, or if it's 1 minute, you know, you have to sit and watch the camera. And the second thing is, see if I remember this correctly, you're going to be able to transfer protected images, and protected images that fail to transfer the first time, you're going to be able to transfer them all at once. It's all going to be written down here below. I guess this is something that would be handy for people who shoot sports events. So if you're shooting photos and transferring them via Wi-Fi or FTP or whatever to a server somewhere, at least now if there was issues before with protected images not transferring, that's dealt with, right? So that's pretty cool. I don't personally use that feature, so I can't really talk too much about it, but if you do use it and it's something that's handy for you, that's awesome. And number 8, and this is kind of interesting, you can take your camera settings, so I assume it's going to be like C1, C2, C3, and you can save those settings onto a card, and then you can take that card and plug it back into your camera at another point in time, or plug it perhaps into other R5s, and then use it to align your settings with all your cameras so they're all identical. So if you have a bunch of R5s, you can have them all set up with the exact same settings. And that's kind of cool, right? That's something interesting. And yeah, that's going to open some doors to some interesting possibilities in the future for people who shoot with R5s. That's pretty cool. All right, 9, 10, and 11 are bug fixes, or phenomenons, as Canon refers to them. And the first one is pretty important. I didn't run into this issue, but there are some CF Express cards that didn't, or created some sort of phenomenon when you put them in the R5. I remember reading articles online about the proper CF Express cards to use with the R5 because certain ones didn't work. So I assume they've addressed that, and now all CF Express cards work in the camera. Don't quote me on it. I don't know for sure. I'm just assuming based on what the text is. And the second thing is they fixed a phenomenon where the camera wouldn't operate normally when shooting in high-speed continuous still images. So I guess for sports shooters, that's a big deal. I would hate to be on the sideline shooting some kind of event and all of a sudden the camera freezes or whatever when you're trying to capture the moment in high-speed continuous. And the 11th thing is a phenomenon where I guess the camera would get suspended when you were charging it through USB. So that's been fixed. And yeah, those are the 11 updates in the new firmware. And for me, it's the first few that are really exciting. I'm looking forward to using that. I want to try out Canon Log3, and I want to try out that, what was it, RAW Light. I want to try that out and see how it handles on my computer, and that'd be great because I know 8K came in handy a few times, especially when shooting tutorials. I could zoom in onto the menus when I was talking about certain things and then zoom back out. So it was a great way to like punch in. And the problem with 8K is my computer would really chug along, but hopefully now I can use it more often and without any issues. All right, and there you go. Now you know. Sounds like a few exciting things, but definitely thank you, Canon, for this update. This sounds pretty good. And if you guys want to see more tips and tricks and tutorials on the EOS R5, definitely subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be making a lot more videos on the EOS R5, and I already have a bunch of videos about it already. So if you want to check those out and learn how to use this camera better, definitely do that, because this camera is, to be honest, my favorite Canon camera. It's the best camera they have ever made for photo and for video, hybrid camera. So definitely happy with it. Looking forward to it, and also looking forward to more rumors about the R5C. I think that's pretty exciting. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Peace out. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.